let me highlight how important it is that when we have issues of regional responsibility, that we come together as you're seeing today. It seems to be against the norm of what's happening in the society at large, but Ed will remember that back during the COVID outbreak on a Friday afternoon, we were given information from Albany that it would be county executives that would decide whether or not we would permit a certain kind of sports to be played. We found out about 3:30 on a Friday night. We had to take some action. So Ed and I and our colleagues were on the phone with each other, and we figured it out. And we came up with some protocol of what we had to tell the local sports directors, because we were all in agreement that we should move forward in that area. We know that we have common interest in transportation routes. We share the MTA routes that come through these areas. I've long felt that the other counties in the MTA region should have a full vote on the MTA board, as Westchester does, to better reflect the impact of the MTA as it goes through the Metro North system. And we have common interest in our tourism. When people are in New York City and they want to tour the area outside of New York City, they don't say they want to come to Westchester or to Orange County or to Rockland or Dutchess. They come to the Hudson Valley. They want to see the walkway across the Hudson. They want to be able to go to FDR, West Point, all of the different sites in any of our counties. And when we work at those things together, we can present the best possible marketing effort. So we're together today, despite what anybody might think in general about government, because we know that we have a common interest here. And the success and the health of this river is very much a common interest. Let me share an anecdote, a true story that goes back to when I was a young boy. My father, who's a blue-collar fellow, was a maintenance person by profession, was very good at things around the house, and I am to this day not very good at things around the house. And he was trying to show his son exactly what it was that was involved in some woodworking effort. And as he was showing me, and he had a saw, and he had a piece of wood, and I remember him looking, his face was right close to mine. He said, "Now before you cut this piece of wood, son, I want you to measure twice, because if you measure it wrong and you cut it and you don't have it right, you're going to have to run out and get another piece of wood." And I looked straight at him and said, "Pop, I understand." What I didn't realize when he told me that story, he wasn't just talking about woodworking. He was talking about everything in life. Measure twice and cut once. Meaning, be sure before you take an action that can't be undone. He didn't say it in that way, but I understand it to be that way today. We have, on the other side of Westchester County, a monument called the Rising, which honors our 9/11 dead, the people that died that day on 9/11 who were Westchester County residents, over 100 of those individuals. Steve and Ed and Jen and Kevin and William O'Neill, we all have those monuments to honor the 9/11 dead. Last year, a year ago, we added a special wall for the people that died from 9/11 related illnesses. I know for a fact Steve and Ed personally know some of those people in their counties who died. These are people who worked on the pile, and they did yeoman's work, and they did a tremendous job to help us put back together Lower Manhattan. At the time, those men and women as well were involved in this. They were told that the science allowed them to come back safely and work on that pile, that they didn't need to have hazmat suits on or certain kinds of gear. And they did their work, and they did it with professional skill. And some of those people died at age 40 and at age 50. They sacrificed years of their lives just as much as the people who died that day at 9/11 sacrificed their life, because they were told that the science was definitive. And it wasn't. Science wasn't definitive. We've all gone through, Steve and I had this conversation about COVID. We were told at various times during the pandemic, a cloth mask is fine. How many cloth masks did you buy to hand them out? We did, and we handed them out. And then we were told, wait a minute, you have to have surgical masks, not cloth masks. We have boxes of surgical masks sitting somewhere in a storage room in Westchester County. And so we went out and we got surgical masks. Then a little later on, the science says, wait a minute, KN95 masks. And I say that with a humorous tilt, but the bottom line is, I'm not convinced of the science until you convince me. I have the responsibility for my 1 million people. You have the responsibility for your 200,000 people, your 350, 400,000 people, your 100,000 people. We're tasked with worrying about their health. And we're not going to accept someone saying, well, this is what we've done, we're going to do it again. We want to see details explained over a period of time with independent scrutiny of that information. We want to see testing. If somebody has said we've released this water into the Hudson River before, we want to see the results of the testing. We want to know what is the residual factor. If you released a certain amount in a certain period of time, I know you didn't release 1 million gallons before. If you did, what's the residual impact in the harbors of Haverstraw and Ossining? We want to know that. We've got to know that before this thing happens. And each of us have an obligation, a duty, fiduciary duty and a moral duty to make sure that our residents know that these things don't happen unless we know for sure that what will happen is acceptable. I'm not convinced it is, and I think the deeper dive is going to prove that this is not a way to be able to do this. But the message here is we are pleased that there's a HOLTEC pause, but we want more than a pause. We want a full stop, and we want to be a part of the decision-making process to understand what the options are. And since this is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, we are the people as well. And it's not just a corporate decision, it's a decision that has to be made by all of us as people.